This section of the old city is the Jewish quarter, and mostly populated by those who have a real desire to be close to where the temple stood in the time of Herod the Great, but also they anticipate a coming temple that will stand on the Temple Mount here in the city of Jerusalem. Many of those who are studying priestly duties to operate that coming temple live here in the Jewish quarter. In fact, in the apartment right above this little marketplace, Rabbi Nachman Kahana called together a group of religious Jewish men, and they started studying the activities to build that coming temple. I need to get a paper. Hello. Jerusalem Post, please. As a journalist here in the city of Jerusalem, I need to be able to check my undisclosed sources. But in reality, the Jerusalem Post does provide information about this coming temple that will one day stand here in the city of Jerusalem.
Not since 70 AD, when Roman armies leveled the Temple of Israel, has a Jewish house of worship stood on the original site of Solomon's temple. Instead, since the 7th century, a Muslim shrine called the Dome of the Rock has occupied Israel's most holy place. In spite of this golden dome, a devout segment of Jewish believers are making plans for a temple and future sacrifices that they hope will usher in the long-awaited Messianic age. Here in Jerusalem's Jewish quarter, we find treasures of the temple. This teaching center is an extension of the Temple Institute. It was formed to promote awareness of a coming temple and to develop implements needed for future temple service. Here the story is told of Jewish men who are even now being trained for future priestly duties. Also displayed are replicas of biblical harps, which the Harari harp makers hope will be used in the music of a future temple.
Micah, the Temple Institute has been on the cutting edge in preparations to build the next temple, the third temple. Have they commissioned you to make these biblical harps?
Basically, they came to us when they wanted harps made that would be for the temple. And they checked out our instruments and they checked us out and they asked us to do it. So several years ago we began to make harps for them.
Are you the only harp makers in the state of Israel?
Yeah, we're the only harp makers here in 2,000 years.
The implements, the instruments to be used in the worship service and the sacrificial activities at that temple have been made and are in storage. There are priests in the city of Jerusalem studying their duties to operate the temple. And now here at the harp factory, for the first time in 2,000 years, they're making the biblical harps that will be used when the temple stands in full operations on the Temple Mount in the city of Jerusalem.
The best description of this future temple is found in the latter part of the book of Ezekiel. Chapters 40 through 48, Ezekiel describes a new life for the nation Israel. The first part of that section, Ezekiel describes this temple. Its dimensions are larger than any other temple ever built. He pictures first the layout of the temple in such detail that you could actually construct it. Then he describes the return of the glory of the Lord and the glory of the Lord filling that temple. And then he describes the new service of worship for God.
One of the most fascinating prophecies that I find in the Bible is the prophecy of a future temple. And I find these prophecies featured in Ezekiel. Ezekiel chapter 40 through 48 really cover the period of Israel's future. And it's exciting to see that Ezekiel describes a temple in the future. And he gives a very accurate description of a temple with many elements that can be actually measured. And he describes measurements for this temple. And the measurements are so precise that a model of this temple can be and has been constructed.
In the New Testament, Jesus Christ confirmed that indeed there will be a temple standing here in the city of Jerusalem. But the prophet Ezekiel, in 7 chapters of his prophecy, gives information that this future temple is going to be different than the previous ones that stood here on the Temple Mount.